Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. We're on text 31. Text 31, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respect, obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan. To Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta praise for Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavat Yutamashloki, Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Text 31, Chapter 2, Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam. Vipanan, Vishapanena, Nigriya, Bujaga Adipam, Utapya, Apayayat, Gava, Tat, Toyam, Prakriti, Sitam, Vipanan Vishapanena, Nigriya Bujagadipam, Utapya Payayad Gavas, Tatvayam Prakriti Stitam, Vipanan Vishapanena, Nigriya Bujagadipam, Utapya Payayad Gavas, Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam, Vipanan Vishapanena, Nigriya Bujagadipam, Utapya Payayad Gavas, Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam, Vipanan Vishapanena, Nigriya Bujagadipam, Utapya Payayad Gavas, Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam,
Vipananam Visapanena,
Vipanam Vishapanena,
Nigriya Bujagadipam,
Nigriya Bujagadipam,
Utapya Payayad Gavas,
Utapya Payayad Gavas,
Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam,
Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam,
Vipanan Visapanena,
Vipanan Vishapanena,
Nigriya Bujagadipam,
Nigriya Bujagadipam,
Utapya Payayad Gavas,
Utapya Payayad Gavas,
Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam,
Tattvayam Prakriti Stitam,
Vipanam Vishapanena,
Vipanan Vishapanena,
Nigraya Bhujagadipam,
Nigriya Bujagadipam,
Utapaya Payagavas,
Utapya Payayad Gavas,
Tatoyam prakriti shtitam.
Tatoyam prakriti stitam. Anyone else online would like to chant the verse? Okay, we'll go to the word for word. I'll just note it. I noticed there's another chat here. So Kim wrote, I loved the smile after singing Radha Madhava. So they're appreciating your smile after singing Radha Madhava. Hare Krishna.
So maybe their own smile.
Vipanan, perplexed in great difficulty.
Perplexed in great difficulties.
Vishapanena,
Vishapanena.
by drinking poison.
By drinking poison.
Nigriya,
Nigriya.
subduing.
Subduing.
Bhujaga Adipam,
Ujaga Adipam.
the chief of the reptiles.
The chief of the reptiles.
Utapya,
Utapya.
after coming out.
After coming out.
Apayayat,
Apayayat.
caused to drink.
Caused to drink.
Gava,
Gava.
the cow.
The cows.
Tat,
Tat.
that.
That.
Toyam,
Toyam.
water.
Water.
Prakriti,
Prakriti.
natural.
Natural.
Stitam,
Stitam.
situated.
Situated.
Translation. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kaliya. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away. And after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state. There's no purport to that verse. I'll read text 32. I'll chant the Sanskrit. Aya Jaya Go Sabena Gopa Rajam Dvijo Tamai Ditasya Choru Barasya Chikir Shansad Yayam Vibhu. Translation: the Supreme Lord Krishna desired to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows, and also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. Thus he advised his father to perform worship of Go, or the pasturing land and the cows, with the help of learned Brahmins. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Since he is the teacher of everyone, the Lord also taught his father, Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj was a well-to-do landholder and owner of many cows, and as was the custom, he used to perform yearly worship of Indra, the king of heaven, with great opulence. This worship of demigods by the general populace is also advised in the Vedic literature, just so people can accept the superior power of the Lord. The demigods are servants of the Lord, deputed to look after the management of various activities of the universal affairs. Therefore, it is advised in the Vedic scriptures that one should perform yagas to appease the demigods. But one who is devoted to the Supreme Lord has no need to appease the demigods. Worship of the demigods by common people is an arrangement for acknowledging the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, but it is not necessary. Such appeasement is generally recommended for material gains only, as we have already discussed in the second canto of this literature. One who admits the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to worship the secondary demigods. Sometimes, being worshipped and adored by less intelligent living beings, the demigods become puffed up with power and forget the supremacy of the Lord. This happened when Lord Krishna was present in the universe, and thus the Lord wanted to give a lesson to the king of heaven, Indra. He therefore asked Maharaj Nanda to stop the sacrifice offered to Indra and to use the money properly by performing a ceremony worshiping the cows on the pasturing ground on the hill of Govardhan. By this act, Lord Krishna taught human society, as he has instructed in the Bhagavad Gita also, that one should worship the Supreme Lord by all acts and by all their results. That will bring about the desired success. The Vaishyas are specifically advised to give protection to the cows and their pasturing ground or agricultural land instead of squandering their hard-earned money. That will satisfy the Lord. the perfection of one's occupational duty, whether in the sphere of duty to oneself, one's community, or one's nation, is judged by the degree to which the Lord is satisfied. Om Mangana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurandalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Stra Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragana Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansikalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaurabhata Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 2 Text 31 and 32 Vipanan Vishapanena Nigriya Bhujagadipam Bhutapyapa Yayad Gavas Tatoyam Prakritistitam Ayajayad Gosavena Goparajam Dvijotamai Vitasya Choruparasya Chikirshan Sadvyayam Vibhu. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kaliya. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away. And after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, desired to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows, and also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. Thus, he advised his father to perform worship of Go, or the pasturing land, and the cows, with the help of learned Brahmins. Hare Krishna. So Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Krishna, Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor. And so Govinda means one who gives fulfillment to the cows, the land, the earth, and the senses. And so we can see that here. These two verses discuss the pastimes from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book, about the Krishna and the Kaliya snake and the Nagapatnis, the wives of the Kaliya snake, and about the Govardhan Puja. We're coming to that time of the year soon, where it's the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram and Srimati Radharani and Govardhan. We're approaching that time of year. And so in the first sentence of the purport, Prabhupada writes, since he's the teacher of everyone, the Lord also taught his father, Nanda Maharaj. And here he's giving his father lessons in financial management. Nanda Maharaj was a well-to-do landholder and owner of many cows, and as was the custom, he used to perform yearly worship of Indra, the king of heaven, with great opulence. Okay, so Krishna's, of course, when money is used in Krishna's service, it's Lakshmi, and so Krishna's. Of course, this is special pastime with Govardhan Hill. Krishna actually begins by speaking wrong philosophy to Nanda Maharaj. He'd speak, or at least incomplete philosophy to Nanda Maharaj, karma mimamsa philosophy. And he has a particular purpose in doing that. It's not the only time, like in his form of Buddha, he gives Buddhist philosophy for a certain purpose, Or even, of course, Lord Shiva is known as the greatest servant of Vishnu, the servant of Krishna, and a partial expansion of Lord Shiva is Shankaracharya, who brought people back from let's say nihilism, voidism towards the Vedas by giving a sort of a Brahma Gyoti. The idea that the Brahma Gyoti is the most complete form of the absolute. So that's also deviant philosophy in some ways, or at least incomplete. And then through a series of Vaishnavacharyas, Nimbarkacharya and Vishnu Swami and Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, then Krishna gave more and more complete understanding of the Vedas till the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about over 500 years ago, giving the complete Siddhanta, the complete conclusion of the Vedas, Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, inconceivable and simultaneous oneness and difference. Inconceivable and simultaneous oneness and difference. Inconceivable, Achintya, doesn't mean we can't understand. It means we can try for millions of years, our lifetimes, Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamu Vayora Tapi Manasa Muni Pungavanam Sotyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. We can speculate for millions and millions of years, and with our mundane empirical methods, we're not going to get realization of how everything's one with God and different from God. And through the process of bhakti, then that which is trans-empirical, that which is trans-phenomenal, Krishna reveals to us. We get more and more realization. So that's like the epistemology of bhakti yoga. And so, yes, so Lord Chaitanya revealed Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. That's what we get from Srila Prabhupada. And so I just say, like in let's call it a sort of a superficial reaction. We might say, oh, money. Okay, if we think of money, oh, that's material. Money, that's material. So this is, right, so like spiritual means one is poor. Or, okay, Bhakta Tyler Shut, so they got Nrsingadev. We have Lord Nrsingadev. We have Lord Nrsingadev on the altar. Okay. Yes. Thanks for that comment, Chip. All right. So we can say, oh, anger, that's also material. Money, these are material things. So it's described here. It's described. It's one of the it's the first seed verse of Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante ma Buddha bhava samanvita. So Krishna is, I'm the source of everything. Right? So I'm the source of all spiritual material energies and worlds. And one who, to the extent that we get that, then naturally we want to serve Krishna with love and devotion. So it means Krishna is the source of the birds and the rainbows and the anger, and he's the source of those who are without material wealth and with material wealth. So every God's the source of everything. God's the source of everything. And so anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjana, which means the principle of bhakti is not to reject anything. The common example Prabhupada uses, like we find a wallet, and we can say, okay, so the boga mentality is like, okay, I'll enjoy this $800 in the wallet. And then you might say the palgu vairagya, should be palgu vairagya. And so the palgu or false, incomplete renunciation, it's not my wallet. It's not my money, not my credit cards to enjoy. So I won't touch it. And there is, of course, something noble about that because it's above the gross material mentality. More complete, Prabhupada says, where we feel best about ourselves, even from the mundane analogy, where we feel really fully in integrity. It's not my wallet to enjoy, but it is someone's. So let me return it to the owner. Oh, here's a name on the driver's license. Let me return it to the owner. It's his to enjoy the $800 in the credit card. Then that's the highest integrity. So Krishna says, and Sri Krishna and Nanda Maharaj are illustrating that in the Govardhan Hill pastime. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi yad juhosi dazasiya. Yat tapasyasi konte tat kushamararpana. Says all that you do, all that you offer, all that you eat, all austerities you do it as an offering unto me. Do that as an offering unto me. So if it's about money or anger, again, another simple analogy, is a knife good or bad? Okay, in the hands of a murderer, it kills. In the hands of an expert surgeon, it heals and saves lives. So what's the consciousness behind the usage? What's the consciousness behind the usage of the money, of the emotion? That's the key point. That's the key point. To cultivate expertise, cultivate knowledge, cultivate know-how, how to use all energies. Nothing's eliminated in Bhakti Yoga, right? It's a very world-embracing process. It's not world-rejecting. Nothing's eliminated. Cultivating the capacity, the spiritual intelligence. Krishna says in another seed verse of Bhagavad Gita, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dharami buddhiyogam tam yena mamupiyanti te. Says the one who's sincere in serving me, I'll give the intelligence by which they come to me. So if we're sincere, I want to know how to like use this human form, the body, the resources, the relationships, the emotions, the energies, the impulses, the desires. I want to use this to serve God. And Krishna gives us the intelligence through verses and purports like this, through our current link to the Parampara, Srila Prabhupada. You can look like Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, there in like the 1920s. He would travel in fancy cars. But the idea for like a sadhu, the idea for like a spiritual person to travel in cars, that was like scandalous. It was like scandalous. How could you do that? And he was using various technologies of the time. He was creating these diorama exhibits. And he was criticized, including by other Vaishnava groups. This is material. So, no, this car is Krishna's energy. In Prabhupada's time, the idea, Bhaktisiddhanta's time, Prabhupada's time, so Prabhupada used airplanes. Let's use airplanes in Krishna's service. Revolutionary. Viplava, Darbad, Visargo, Janataga, Viplava. Yes, let's use everything to create a revolution in consciousness. Described Darbad, Visargo, Janataga, Viplava. Tasmin Pratishloka, Yabadava Yapi. Ramanyanantasya Yashanti Tamya Shrimbanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadava. Describe this Bhagavatam. described thousands of years ago. This Bhagavatam is meant, it's destined to create a revolution in consciousness and impious lives of the people of Kali Yuga. So yeah, so Prabhupada, let's use the printing press. Let's use computers. Let's use some of you are familiar back when the BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. This is back like early mid-70s. So they got these like computers. There was no laptop computers, but even like for a company to have any sort of computer, maybe at that time, like the military and the government and NASA would have computers. But so they got these computers like that. So they were talking about, what our new computer can do with the layout and the books. And so anyhow, so Prabhupada had already translated, and through the dictaphone, he'd already translated all 17 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we hadn't printed it yet because they were printing other books, Bhagavatam, this and that. So Prabhupada said, and they were like publishing like a book every 4 months or so. Prabhupada said, okay, so he said, yeah, so I'd like that you publish all 17 volumes in 2 months. And so this is recorded, and then one of the leaders said, oh, well, that's impossible, Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada gave a well-known comment. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So this is spirit is superior to matter. This is clear intention. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And then he essentially said, if you don't do it, then your computers are useless. So it's just like challenge, stretch. And the sincerity of the team of devotees, they did it. They published 17 volumes of Chancharita in 2 months. Okay. They were, and it was probably a pretty good pace by normal industry standards. They were publishing one book every 4 months. It's pretty good. They printed 17 in 2 months. Prabhupada's clear intention and his inspired followers like that. And there was a lot of reduction of sleeping and eating and things like that. Okay, so yeah, we sometimes quote Leonard Bernstein, who said, to achieve something great, 2 things are required. 1, a plan. 2, not quite enough time. Right. Because if we have ample time, it's like, oh yeah, I'll get to it, then there's no energy there. So so I know from myself, like to adequately, like to be in that energy, it means like to create stretches for myself where it's not like pressure, it's not anxiety, but I create like, I'm not saying I do this, but like sometimes I do it. I'm not saying, but like during intensive seminars, I'll do it like that. So that's why like this is something like I aspire to do that more frequently. The idea is to create stretches for myself, for meaningful goals, and like myself, not quite enough time. Not so I'm rushed and pressured, but then I'm urgent. It's a quality of a devotee. Again, it's like it's not me, but something to aspire for me. Avyarta kalatvam. Devotee does not want to waste a moment. Doesn't want to waste a moment outside of devotional service. And devotional service is synonymous with self-realization, with self-discovery. Yeah. And so sometimes I have structures in my life where that's where I'm at. And then it's like, I don't like it, but it forces me. It forces me to be on my A game, so to speak. It forces me to be in that, to be in that urgent consciousness. And then I'm fulfilled. Then I'm happy. Then I'm energized. Then I'm energized. Then I'm connected with Prabhupada, connected with Super Soul. And right. And then I'm free from anxiety. So let's just say I aspire to move towards steadily creating structures for such a life. So yeah, so everything comes from Krishna. Everything can be used in Krishna service. So we can say, and so an important point here, of course, is like So you might say a whole theme of Krishna book, of Krishna's pastimes, of Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna is not just another demigod. Now, maybe most of us here, maybe practically all of us, at least most of us, we didn't, anyhow, demigods. I didn't grow up with demigods, right? What's that relevant? But basically, kind of the idea is serving, worshiping, seeking the approval, seeking the favor of entities, persons, groups who we perceive they're powerful, they're controlling the material energy. If I can be seen with them, if I could get his favor, her favor, then I'm in the in crowd. Then I got it made. Then I'll be famous too. Then I'll be popular. I'll get compliments, profit, adoration, and distinction. And it could be a person who we perceive as successful in controlling the material energy. Maybe it's in the realm of money. Maybe it's in the realm of popularity. Maybe it's in the realm of sports or entertainment or politics or like that. So that's demigod. That's the demigod principle. Okay. Like if we didn't grow up with like Indra, Brahma, things like, but that's a demigod principle. So Krishna emphasizes, Amadir Devanam Maharshanam Chasarvasha. He says, I'm the source, just like he's the source of all energies, all emotions, all opulences. He says, I'm the source of the demigods and the sages. I'm not just another prophet. Okay, so this is the Vedic conclusion. This is the Vedic conclusion. Yes. And Krishna describes Yajanti Vidi Purvakam, that one who's serving, worshiping, seeking the favor of other demigods, means controllers of material energy. It says that they're really the propensity for service and for worship, it's misdirected. It's really meant for the Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So we can say, oh, okay, so everything's from God, everything's from Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, person of Godhead. Therefore, Krishna accepts everything in the same way. No, that's impersonalism. So that's impersonalism. Just like I'm a person, you're a person, right? So we could say like, okay, so that means like, I'm a person who eats, you're a person who eats. So any food given to us, we accept in the same way equally. No, some food I prefer over others. Okay, it means anything I do, right? I just say it's like say a parent with children. Okay, sure, the parent's always loving to the children. God, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is always loving. Aham Bijab Pradampita, all his children, all the living entities. And so, right, and so the parent is equally pleased no matter what the child does. No, it might be true the parent's always loving the child, but there are some things like, wow, that gives me, wow, that really touches my heart that you did that. Or I feel so proud of you. And there are other things like, no, that's not pleasing. I'm angry with you. I'm ideally always with a loving heart. Right? Okay, so like Lord Nrsingadev is loving Hiranyakashipu and he's showing anger. So the science is how to utilize everything. Right? How to utilize. Right here, it's Sri Krishna is giving lessons to Nanda Maharaj in his divinely cute way, with some transcendental trickery there. How to utilize money. Okay. Nanda Maharaj was wealthy. Specifically talking about money. Of course, Nanda Maharaj was wealthy in cows and land and like that. So how to utilize our resources, our money, how to utilize all aspects of life in devotional service, how to engage Sarvapati Vinirva Muktam Takarapana Takarapati Nirmala. how to use everything in a way that's free from upadi. Upadi means like an external imposition on the self. It's like an anartha. Okay. So like to the extent that I'm thinking of this body or any of the designations related to this body, it's not, it's external. It's an artificial imposition on the self. So actually, so to awaken our original spiritual consciousness, our spiritual senses, to use our senses inspired by bhakti, inspired by the potency, by the force of bhakti, to use our emotions, our thoughts, our living room, our money, in a way where we come to realize, oh, it's not my living room, it's not my computer, it's not my money, it's not even mine, not even my mind. It's all Krishna's energy. Now, so let me return the wallet for the enjoyment of the owner. Let me return my wallet. Yeah, because so this is, this is Krishna's mental energy. So Krishna's not going to force me to use it in a way that pleases him. Same time, he is encouraging, because, and not just like we could say, oh, sounds like this selfish guy, Krishna. And this is, so Krishna is, of course, Atmarama. God is Atmarama, means self-satisfied. And God's pure devotees are Atmarama. Atmaramas chamunayo nigatiya yumukrame. Kravanta hetu kim bhakti tam buddha guno hari. Atmarama means self-satisfied. Means I don't need compliments or approval. I'm not looking for adoration or distinction. I don't need anything external in the realm of doing or having to give me fulfillment. I'm not under the illusion that anything external will give me fulfillment. And then that's freedom. That's freedom from the modes of material nature. And then by my attachment, because the nature of the soul is to be attached. Right? In personal growth, there's a lot of talk and writing about just be detached. Just be detached. Just be detached. Great. The only thing is it's completely impossible. What is possible is we get to choose where we're attached, and we can be attached to matter or to spirit. So being attached to spirit basically means being attached to the activities of bhakti and learning how, because because if we're detached from matter completely, that essentially is Brahma-Gyoti realization, which is nice, but it won't be lasting. A verse that Prabhupada often quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. Enera vindaksha mukti maninas tvayasta bhava ravi shuddha buddhaya ariya kritrena param tata patantya no dadrishta yushmadandrea, spoken by Lord Brahma. It says that even those who apparently achieve the impersonal liberation, they're not satisfied, because our nature is to be blissful through relationship, through exchanging relationship. And if we're just kind of merged without positive, so negation of the material in itself is not spiritual. It might be a relief, but it's not spiritual. And so we're going to come back down to the extent that we haven't learned how to use our senses, our money, our resources in Krishna service. We'll come back down to use it in the material sphere, and that will be frustrating for the spirit soul. So this is bhakti, and this is bhakti, learning how to use everything in Krishna's service, and that naturally brings self-realization, realizing who we are as not the body, spirit, soul, servant of Krishna. And so we serve Krishna, and then we're happy. So Krishna wants this for us. He's not needy. But and we all have that experience, right? I have that experience each day, many times. Right? I'm engaging, like right now, feeling in line. Somehow I'm discussing Bhagavatam. We just had a few hours chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Oh yeah, I'm coming. This is for my happiness. I'm engaged in devotional service. Shruti Smriti Purnanadi Pancharacha Vidindrida Aikanti Hare Bhakti Utpataya Kalpate. Under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada, he knows how to engage us in devotional service and awaken our spiritual senses. And so, and then those times of the day when my mind's going here and there, a slippery slope, and sliding away from anything resembling bhakti, and I'm not even aware of it. we mentioned that a few days ago in class. Like Maya has two departments, like a manufacturing company. There's a department that advertises, like, you'll be really happy if you just click on this, you just purchase this. Okay, if you just, and then there's the manufacturing department. So like the gunas, the three modes, material, nature. Maya, you might say, has those two aspects to put the jiva in illusion. If I need this product to be happy, I don't even want it. I just need it. I just need this product. And then it has the manufacturing department. So that material nature itself, it's built of Maya. But it's not hopeless, because we can choose sincerely. I want to engage in bhakti. I want to serve Krishna. I want to serve Srila Prabhupada. And then we transform matter into spirit. We transform matter into spirit. This is the science of bhakti. And so Prabhupada, related to this verse, he closes the purport with the statement, that will satisfy the Lord, the perfection of one's occupational duty, whether in the sphere of duty to oneself, one's community, or one's nation, is judged by the degree to which the Lord is satisfied. So there's a text in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ta pumbir drija shvestas varnashrama vibhagasha sanusti tasya dharmasya samsatim haritoshin. Prabhupada references that a lot. That the highest perfection of fulfilling one's responsibilities in any sphere of life are sub-dharmas, the highest perfection of fulfilling our responsibilities as in relationships, as a husband, as a wife, as a student, as a teacher, as a business person, the highest perfection of fulfilling our responsibilities is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to give pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's like, that's the gauge. To what extent are we doing that? So I don't know Krishna, so I don't know, but I do know, because we can know from Srila Prabhupada. He knows Krishna. And then that series of texts goes on. Tasmade kena manasa bhagavat sattvatapati shotavya kiditavyascha deya pujas tanichita. So the highest perfection of fulfilling responsibilities to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, with focused attention, with single pointed attention, let us hear about, chant, glorify, celebrate, serve, shotavya kidita, deya, meditate on, remember the activities and the name and the form of the Supreme Personality of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 31 and 32. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kaliya. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away. And after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state. The Supreme Lord Krishna desired to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows. And also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. Thus he advised his father to perform worship of Go, or the pasturing land and the cows, with the help of learned Brahmins. Just before I close, reading that first verse again. So this is a real historical pastime with Krishna and Kaliya. At the same time, we can look at it. It's like there was like all this poison water. There's a Vaishnava poet. He sings in his bhajan. Hari Hari Bipale Janama Gunhaino Manusha Janma Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya Janya Sunya Bishakani. He says that I've gotten this human form of life, and because I've not used it to serve Radha and Krishna, Shri Radha and Krishna, I've wasted my human form of life. And it's Janya Sunya Bishakani, and it's like I'm knowingly drinking poison. It's like very heavy, very, very heavy analogy. So like we have knowledge, and so we get to bathe in nectar and drink nectar. And when I disconnect myself from the process Prabhupada has given us on behalf of Sri Krishna, and it's like it isn't, I'm like knowing nature taking place. Hare Krishna, thanks for giving your attention to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. I welcome at this time any comments, questions, realizations anyone wants to ask or share. Damayanti.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. So Prabhupada's disciples, they did print 17 books in 2 months.
Yes.
And they were like, how? I think they worked day and night or something.
Oh yes, quite a thing. Now one thing, you can talk personally to Mother Janava. She was part of the team. That's my understanding. She was part of the team. Yeah, my understanding is they worked day and night, and they would go in shifts. And it was, of course, because most of them are probably still living, and there's different memories, tapes you can hear, but they did it. And so it was 24 hours a day. And they would go in shifts, and so some were working all night. And what I said, because like, I'm not an artist of any sort, but what I understand, like, especially for the artist, if you can imagine, because not just the page setup and the layout and the proofreading and like that. It was also the paintings. Prabhupada, the paintings were so much a part of his vision for his books. Amazing. So especially for an artist, if you can imagine. So the artist, under Prabhupada's guidance, they're painting, and then like, okay, they're falling asleep, so time for the next shift, and then someone else takes over the painting. So like, there would tend to be ego involved. But it just we're doing this for Prabhupada. So so yeah, they just like full surrender, and they proved that impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Yeah, they did it.
I really like the quote that you also shared about to do great things.
To achieve something great, 2 things are necessary. 1, a plan. 2, not quite enough time. It's Leonard Bernstein, and it's Bhagavatam, but Leonard Bernstein is representing Bhagavatam.
Yeah. So, is it possible to impose upon oneself just, like it's so for me, like, oh, I could set a date. But if it's just me, like if I'm not accountable to anyone, I could change the date.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just find that fascinating. Not quite enough time.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And I started using it a few years ago during the Software Advanced Seminar. Some of you are familiar, and so during one process, it would be like we'll give like an assignment, and like you might think, oh, okay, well, to complete this assignment, I guess maybe 3 or 4 weeks, like that. And it's like, okay, so you got 5 hours. Okay, do it in excellence. What? And then I've pulled out that Bernstein quote, and then what people invariably, we had advanced course last month and the month before that. Invariably, specifically like a reason because they didn't have near enough time. But then what they connected with themselves, and then I just recently conducting a coaching session with someone. Sometimes we call this process stretch. Anyway, conducting a coaching session with someone, and he recently took the advanced course a few weeks ago, and he was talking about that particular process. I mean, the whole course is like that. Many of you are familiar. But what he said during his coaching session, what he connected with was he was amazed what he and others created in those 5 hours. Like that would have been impossible. Like that's maybe some version of like 17 volumes in 2 months. And it's like, but it was, actually, I hear this regularly from graduates of that particular course. But it wasn't just like, oh, that was amazing. But now he's doing things in his life. He said, each week I'm doing things in my life. 6 months ago would have been, I would have told myself that's impossible because of what he connected with himself. So it's not like the seminar room has a magic or something, like the magic's within each of us. So he's taking that and like with clear intention, we're just like, I'm going to be effective with people, not rushed, present, efficient with time, purposeful, not going to let any grungy, self-defeating stuff get in the way. And he said, in his life, like each day he's accomplishing things internally and externally that he would have thought, it would have taken him 3 months. Now he's doing it within a few hours. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Damya.
Because you're speaking about money, and it were reminded money and Lakshmi, and it reminded me of this. I think I was giving a class actually, and I was really making a comment, or at least coming from a conception of like, well, there's a few people that are like hoarding, all of the world's wealth, And so I was kind of like, conception of that was like, well, it's unfair that those few people get to make the decisions of what to do with the whole world's wealth. That's kind of the paradigm I was coming from. And then you presented a paradigm of like, well, not necessarily inherently a bad thing. Like if one of those people, is committed to, supporting the world's population and self-realization and, Krishna consciousness, then let's give them more money. Let's give them all the money or whatever.
Sure.
So that's like a different paradigm. And so and it's also like a paradigm that's outside the box, or like, so the context is, because I could think, because maybe I was thinking like, well, it should be more democratic perhaps. We should decide how the world's money, I should have a say in how the world's wealth is used or whatever. Because Elon Musk wants to go to Mars or whatever, different planets, things like that. So like, is that what I want? We should have a say in that. This guy shouldn't decide what to do with all the money. So maybe it should be more democratic, but then it kind of, something about this class helped me to see like a different perspective of like, rather than like trying to change the context of like, oh, well, we should have a say what to do with the money. It's like, how can I contribute? How can I be responsible to transformation of consciousness so that Elon Musk gets transformation where he wants to use the money, for Krishna consciousness or whatever. Like that is the goal, rather than like, let me change the system so Elon Musk doesn't have so much money, or he doesn't have, like that's it's much more inspiring,
You got deeper realization about really the key factor is consciousness,
right?
And not intrinsically about how money is divided.
Right.
I'm glad to hear your deep in realization from the class. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Right. So like, because, well, first of all, I'll call it like, because one of the paradigms you shared, it's based on the illusion that by something external, I'll be happy, or others will be happy, or I'll be fulfilled. Right? Everyone's looking for happiness, fulfillment. And so whatever, okay, like if someone or a group, if let's say, and they've got, hundreds of billions, okay, maybe in our grandchildren's lifetime, it'll be hundreds of trillions, whatever the number is, okay, whatever. Like in some countries, like in Germany 90 years ago, whatever the numbers were, but they were taking the money and putting it in the furnace to burn because it was more valuable as a heating fuel. Like it was worthless. But let's say whoever has money, and we all have some money, we all have some resources. whoever has the resources, whether we have $10 or maybe we have 100,000 or a few million or the 100 a billion, whoever has the big money, if let's say if they know how to use it like Nanda Maharaj, yeah, let them have more. Let them have more. And so, right, so what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Srimatam Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Bhashta Bhajayate. He says in one sense, he says like one who practices bhakti yoga but doesn't quite complete their process, that they might take birth in a very wealthy family. So why? So that can be confusing because we can see that, okay, I just gave you the principle, people with, relatively lots of resources, if they're like Nanda Maharaj, but we see it's for most who have lots of resources, they're just bewildered by materialism and consumerism, and they're bewildering others, and they're doing a lot more harm than good. We don't need to go into it like that. But the idea is, if someone has a lot of resources, then the idea is then you don't need to like work. Confucius said, if you love it, what you do, you never have to work. You don't need to get a job. Then there's time to be lazy and engage in decadent life. Well, that's what usually happens, unfortunately. But then Bhagavad Gita says, yeah, someone who's pious, didn't quite complete their process of pure devotion, take birth in a wealthy family, then they don't need to work. Then they can dedicate their life to self-realization. Kirtan programs, prasadam distribution programs, Bhagavatam programs, and they're not distracted by having to work. Of course, if we dovetail, the opportunity is to dovetail whatever our occupational duty is with devotional service. That doesn't mean works better. And so then there's related to, from your sharing, Prabhupada, there's the verse by Queen Kunti, which might seem to be a contradiction to the Bhagavad Gita verse I've just quoted. Janmeshvaya Shuta Shubir, Edamana Badapuman, Naivarhat Yavidatum by Tvamakinchan Gocha. The Queen Kunti, she's this very advanced devotee of Krishna, very pure. She's praying for calamities to happen, because when things don't go well, then we remember Krishna with intensity. Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yajita Purushapra. So she says, for the most part, those who have material opulence and material beauty and high education and maybe an aristocratic family, for them, it's difficult to feelingly call out, hey Govinda, hey Krishna. So therefore she says to Krishna, Tvama Kinchana Gotra, you're the shelter for the materially exhausted. So to profoundly take shelter in Krishna means we're materially exhausted. That means like, oh yeah, we have no money. Doesn't necessarily mean that. Someone could be penniless or debt, and they're just saying, oh, I envy Bill Gates and Elon Musk. I envy that person in the magazine and on Instagram. They have so much. So they're just looking to engage in material life. And someone might have the billions and billions and the hundreds of billions. Someone might have all that, and they're materially exhausted because like they realize like, this is all empty. This is all empty. Let me give myself to a process of liberation. Let me, what is spiritual relationship? Let me give myself to Krishna consciousness. I'm exhausted. Doesn't mean that I throw my money away. I mean, okay, now, how do I use this money that that Krishna has given me in Krishna's service? Thanks for your comment.
Yeah, thanks for that. One thing you said really early about inconceivable, clarifying the philosophy, achintya, inconceivable.
Yeah.
I would really help. It's really helpful because helping me understand that it's not that it's unfathomable or we can't understand it. Actually, there's so many examples that Prabhupada gives of, the sun and the sunshine, different ways to understand it and get it. But the idea that, inconceivable, I'm just appreciating that word more, that like my wife now is pregnant, she's conceived. It's inconceivable for me. I can't conceive that, but I can relate. I
Okay.
can connect. I have an intimate relationship with the child. and
Yeah.
her. So similarly, I can't conceive of my own mental speculation how it's all one and different in this philosophy that's given to us, but I can still get it. I can relate to it intimately and live it, and that, yeah, that process of bhakti, it's coming from Krishna. As I'm devoting myself more to the process, I'll realize it more and more. Just that was really like there's so many other things that were said that I was like, oh, this is good, but that I was almost distracted because I was like, so it was such a light bulb moment for me to get that. And wanting to share the philosophy with others, sometimes it's like, I know this is the definition, it's inconceivable, so I wanted to be accurate, but I didn't have that depth of understanding. So it's like, oh, okay, now I can share that even more and appreciate it for myself and share it with others. So thank you for that, especially, as well as so many other points from Prabh and Damayanti and from yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Tyler. I'm moved by how you're inspired. I'm moved by how you're inspired. Yeah, thanks for that. And it's moved you personally, spiritually, and in your realization capacity, how to share these principles. Right, and as an example, just like you're inconceivable, I'm inconceivable, Devin's inconceivable, yeah, we're all conceivable. And it's the same principle. Like, let's say by the mundane empiric method, if I try to study you and analyze you, I could make a little bit, and I think you're like that, right?
Yeah.
But actually, if I want to deeply know this inconceivable person, Tyler, if I want to deeply know you, I can try to analyze you for trillions of lifetimes. If I want to deeply know you, I gain your love and trust. I serve you, and I understand you. I understand. I sincerely try to understand you, and then you choose to reveal yourself to me. And so that's the process to know equals like each other. What to speak of a person who's so much superior to us, Sri Krishna, the person of Godhead, by analysis, something. But so applying that process to Krishna, that's called bhakti. Thank you, Tyler. Dr. George.
Hare Krishna, David. I'm the part of the class that spoke about demigod worship. I think we related maybe to, on our everyday lives, putting people on pedestals or that kind of sense. And I'm really connected with that anartha in my heart around that idea of putting people on pedestals, whether it's new acquaintances or people that are writing checks for tens of thousands of dollars or things like that, that are really like, I've been sitting through class wondering, when I experience that anxiety, how do I connect, with the idea of being a servant of Krishna, and how do I, in a practical sense, snap myself out of the illusion that somehow this employer or this person who I perceive to be in a role of power really is not in control. It's really, everything that I have, everything that is happening around me, everything is by Krishna's mercy, right? And I get that, like, intellectually, and when I sit at home or when I chant and when I'm connected with sadhana. But in the course of service and with all the distractions and disturbances that happen, it's been coming up for me more recently, that the sense of anxiety. I'm more aware of it when I see someone who's in power role, and I'm like, how do I connect, that so that I can engage with them more authentically, more honestly, how do I snap myself out of that illusion? And so I'm thinking maybe I just, we were talking about chanting a decade of Hare Krishna mantras or something like that. So, I'm just in the thought of that, based on our discussion with, because like you said, we are all aspiring to worship Krishna. So, it's not so much like the demigod aspect of the verse. It doesn't really relate to me as much, but the putting people on pedestals every day is really present with me.
Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for your personal sharing and philosophical, psychological question. Yeah, thanks for that. And it's like one of those how-to questions. And well, certainly I like that. Okay, when we notice that twinge of oh, I need to get this person's approval. This is oh, I envy this person, or I wish like that, then let's create enough emotional distance to chant 10 Hare Krishna Maha mantras, and surely that will get perspective. Yeah, also when I'm entrenched in such things, and just like a morning program, start chanting, read a few sentences from Prabhupada's books, get perspective. And essentially it's about, to the extent we give ourselves to the process of bhakti and stay away from things that alienate us from the process of bhakti, then we get more and more realization of the temporary nature of everything material, like bubbles in an ocean that come together, the temporary ephemeral nature of all of the forms of Maya. And it's one thing like to have methods in the moment to help us get that, like chanting 10 Hare Krishnas, and to the extent that I'm in Prabhupada's books, to the extent that I'm steady in my sadhana, chanting, reading programs like this, then my consciousness is more and more, it just like steadily each day, each month, each year. And then I'm just less inclined to fall under the illusion that moves me to whatever, the envy, the jealousy, the neediness to get this person to like me, because I just have a realization of what's eternal and what's temporary. And I'm thinking there's a place, it's towards the last chapters of the 7th canto. And Narada Muni gives to Yudhishthira Maharaj some very specific instructions about dealing with envy, dealing with jealousy. He said with lust, asankalpaj kaman. He says one can conquer lusty desires by making plans with determination. And I'm not remembering exactly, but it's an especially wonderful part of the Bhagavatam about particular grungy stuff. And he gives, I think with envy, it's about like real, yeah. Exciting, exactly, yeah. Read Bhagavatam cover to cover.
Okay.
Like, yeah, not
today.
Like, yeah. Start, well, if not all today, then start today. Yeah. So I think with envy, it's just like cultivating realization of the temporary nature of everything material, so something like that. I'm not remembering that one so clear, but I do encourage everyone to go to Narada Muni's instructions there. So that's, there's verses where, Prabhupada quotes verses where it says, like for a devotee, Kramani Nirdhati Kintucha Bhakti Bhaja. For a devotee, like Lord Brahma, he's the top demigod, right? Like any powerful, famous person in this world, Lord Brahma just times trillion top. So for a devotee, Brahma is like the same as an ant. And no, I mean, we certainly might respect Brahma because we do respect Brahma. He's the head of our sampradaya, like that. But from the point of view of, because materially he's so powerful, it's just like an ant. Because a devotee has like, what's valuable? What's valuable is devotional service. That's the gold. There's a story, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada tells, so maybe some of you heard this story. Yeah, so there was someone who really wanted a lot of money, and he heard that Sanatana Goswami has a touchstone. A touchstone can transform like base metal into gold, into gold. And he said Sanatana Goswami has a touchstone. So he approached Sanatana Goswami and he goes, I heard like, you have a touchstone, I can get like unlimited gold. And yeah, so Sanatana Goswami was like, oh, you want that? Yeah. I said, oh, okay. It's over there. So there was a garbage heap. There was a garbage heap. It's over there. So this Prabhu, he had some intelligence. And at first he was excited, like, he said, well, okay, so like Sanatana Goswami, he's like highly intelligent. And then he has this in the garbage heap. And he was like, for him, it's not that valuable. So what's more valuable? So I went back to Sanatana Goswami. He goes, you have this in the garbage heap. So clearly you're not valuing this so much. What is it? What's most valuable? You say, you want what's most valuable? Okay, so you're ready to leave aside the touchstone. Yeah. Okay, you want what's most valuable? Repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So to the extent we practice the process Prabhupada gives us, then we realize that it's the multi hundreds of billions of dollars, or it's the ant, or it's the beggar on the street. This is garbage heap stuff. What's valuable is to chant with feeling. Thank you, George. Damayanti.
I just wanted to say something in a practical response to George. It's like when I get caught up in basically thoughts about others or judgments of others, but I don't want to spend my time there. Anyway, it might seem it's kind of simple, but just like leaving my world behind and having a spirit of discovery and empathy for like all aspects of that person, their emotion, their desires, their frustrations, and like just be, like entering their world. And so simple response.
Thanks, that Dami. Yeah, that they're like everyone in material consciousness is suffering. Okay. Whether we perceive them as like, oh, but they're really wealthy, but they had nice parents, and I had, oh, but they have this much money, but they have this house, they have this spouse, and look at material consciousness means suffering. And so not to say, oh, now I feel good because they're suffering, but like to go to, we could go there. We could, I mean, that's material consciousness. Yeah, that's material consciousness too. Prahlad Maharaj is described as paradukkha dukkha, experiencing the pain and suffering of others as his own. Of course, it's not sentimental, because it's empathy with knowledge. And Prahlad Maharaj and the followers of Prahlad Maharaj, they're realized in the knowledge how to relieve one from that pain and suffering. There's a lecture where Prabhupada says, yes, a Vaishnava is paradukkha dukkha, realizing other suffers, others' pain is my own. It was a material consciousness, it's parasukha dukkha. If someone else is miserable, then I am very happy. Of course, we don't say that. Very succinct. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. That's a Chaitanya Charitamrita book. So that's psychology. Of course, we don't say, I'm happy that you're miserable. Oh, I feel so bad for you. We say, really, we're happy when others are miserable. And if others are doing well, then we're very sad. That's material consciousness. But empathy with knowledge and empathy, and that's not like everyone's suffering in the material world. So let me cultivate compassion and realize knowledge, how to relieve first myself and others. Thank you, Damayanti. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.